What's up, guys? Why is it hard for most weed addicts to actually quit weed? And when we look at marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, some might say that it's the safest drug, or it's the most herbal, or it's medicinal, or it's not as bad as alcohol, narcotics, so on and so on, which they are correct. But for that very reason, it's hard for most addicts to actually quit. Now, when we look at things like alcohol, if you do alcohol for if you are addicted to alcohol for even like 3-5 years, you can obviously see the effects. Not to mention it's like 10 or 15 years. If you're on narcotics, you can see the effects. These negative side effects are very apparent to yourself and the outside world. Now, the thing about weed is, it is a plant. It is much more on the lighter end as far as drugs. You can smoke weed for years and people not know it. It doesn't affect how you look. I mean, it can affect your finances, but you're not going to be selling yourself on the street to get a bag of weed. It's not going to physically deteriorate your skin. You're not going to destroy relationships as bad as you would with things like alcohol or narcotics. But for that very reason, it's so hard for people to actually quit. We kind of put weed on this pedestal, like, alcohol is bad, narcotics are bad, which they are. Narcotics are bad. Alcohol, we can kind of put alcohol sometimes in the category of marijuana. Now, of course, alcoholism is bad. I wouldn't say anybody should be an alcoholic. But if we socially drink every now and then, that's going to heighten, give more energy to our personal relationship. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. They say alcohol can it can have negative health effects, but they have seen where it can have positive health effects because it also allows you to have a good time, good community, good social environment, and create memories with your loved one. Same thing with weed. Weed itself is not bad, but if we tend to abuse weed for years and years and use it outside of a social context or outside of a medicinal context, we can start to reap some of its negative side effects. So again, we put weed on this pedestal. It's great. It brings wonders. It makes me laugh. It makes me eat. It makes me sleep. Relieves the stress. Relieves anxiety. We pretty much tend to, especially nowadays, associate a lot of good with weed. And also the social norm of weed has changed. They'll say there's taboo still on weed. Not really. It's more taboo to smoke a cigarette than to smoke a joint. People kind of shun away, you smoke a cigarette, but things like vaping, things like weed, they're so acceptable now with the younger generation. You're not going to feel as much pressure if you are consuming weed on a high level. So when you do, and I'm not speaking to people who just smoke weed every now and then, but for those who smoke weed every day, all day, whether it's social, whether it's to get up, whether it's to go to work, whether it's to do anything, you just find a reason to smoke weed all day, every day. Now, we get so used to doing this, get so used to changing how our body reacts to stress, we view it as a good thing. We'll say that, is weed really harming me? Is it really affecting my relationships? I can't sleep. It helps me sleep. I'm stressed out. It helps me relieve stress. Now, I think stress anxiety is one of the biggest ones people use as far as to say they need weed on a daily basis. Newsflash, life is going to always be stressful. Stress is not going anywhere. That's just, stress anxiety is a part of life. Now, we shouldn't be extremely stressed all day, every day, or we shouldn't be so anxious all day, every day. But the majority of people, all the people, will go through stress at some part of their day, some part of their week. Now, does it mean when we get stressed, we should immediately look for something to ease the stress or alleviate the stress, make us ignore the stress or the anxiety or so on? Probably not. We should probably teach our bodies to actually handle stress in a better way versus just sedating ourselves. Maybe the stress anxiety is something that's maybe your body wants you to take recognition of something. It wants you to change rather than just smoke a joint to just throw it in the back burner. Now, when we tend to use weed for years and years and years, we get used to doing this. And if you are a smoker that has been for years, you tend to smoke by yourself. I think a big tell-all if you are addicted to weed, if you choose to smoke privately, consistently, or you smoke privately more so than socially. Now, me with alcohol, I never, at this point in my life, I don't drink by myself. I drink on date night with my wife. I'm not going to just smoke, I'm not going to just have a cocktail or two by myself. But with weed, I can smoke weed by myself all day, every day. And we tend to make it a personal thing and not use it for medicinal purposes or for social purposes. It tends to come a crutch for us to kind of lean on. And when we do this for years and years and years, and one, weed is, like I said, you can kind of hide weed addiction. You can smoke weed for a long time and people not know you smoke weed. A lot of kickback I get, they'll say, well, I smoke weed all day and I can go to work, I can do these things, and people not know it doesn't affect my life. We think it doesn't affect your life, but it's kind of a slow creep. It's kind of like, we can say weed is the lesser of all evils, but it's more so like taking a little, I'm not taking full arsenic, just a tiny, not even a half a drop for a long period of time. Now, it probably won't kill me, but to deny it's not doing some kind of damage to my internal system is, incorrect. Not saying weed is arsenic, but when we use weed for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I'm going to say to deny that there's no negative side effects as far as how you handle stress, how it changes your appetite, how it affects your mood, how you may have CHS. There are side effects from using this on a daily basis. But when we get so used to it, and again, it's our own private thing, and outside of being a private thing, it's so socially acceptable now to smoke weed. Many states are legal for recreational weed. So we got more people smoking weed now than any time in history. First, where in the 70s, 60s, where weed was kind of like this niche thing for a select group of people. Now it's where they say at least 50% of people in America has tried weed at least once. That's a lot of people. And I'm not saying all those people are addicted, but a lot of them are. And to be addicted to anything is a problem. If you're addicted to exercise, you can say that's a good thing. What's bad with exercise? But we shouldn't overexert our body. Again, weed is not crack, but it's not a glass of water either. So because it's not as bad as other drugs, because it is so socially acceptable now, it's so hard for addicts to actually quit weed. So I would suggest, if you are trying to quit weed in today's world, I would try to not make my decisions based on the outside world. Don't convince yourself that you don't have an issue just because you want to convince yourself. If you smoke weed too much, whether you try to say it's God's green plan, it's medicinal, yada yada yada. If you wake up smoking weed and you go to sleep smoking weed, you probably smoke weed too much. And you say, well, I do, but what's the big deal? I've been smoking it. I'm not dead. I'm probably not going to die. But maybe it's killing your motivation. And you can say, oh, weed motivates me. I can think freely. I can think about more ideas. Yada yada yada. I heard the whole weed think speech. No. And I wouldn't let the outside world influence what I put into my body. We may say, okay, is it really bad? Everybody's smoking. It's legal. Would they truly make something bad legal? Like, now is the time where I can just go down the street, go into a dispensary, and just buy a blunt. Is this the time now to actually quit weed? Stars are doing it. Like I said, It's better to be caught smoking a joint than smoking a cigarette. So, and we have to be really careful, even though they say that it's a war on drugs and war on weed. It's not really a war on weed. Weed is quite acceptable. So we have to be cautious of anything that the media makes us think it's acceptable or the norm. So, just wanted to hop on here to briefly discuss why most weed addicts have a hard time quitting weed, probably won't quit weed. But if you're watching this to this point right now, you're probably thinking, maybe I should probably quit weed. So I encourage you, don't let me, anyone else influence your journey. You know what you need to do, you know what you have to do, and you know what's best for you. And until next time, guys, like, subscribe, share, and remember, we are all in this together. And also comment below. Let me know what you think. Till next time, guys, peace.